to Dark Thrones and Dr. Shrinker. Buckle up. Things are about to get heavy. This is the Metal Podcast. Let's rock and roll.
All right, and welcome to another edition of the Metal Podcast, the only show that only kind of lives up to its name. I am AC, and I am joined with the most forgetful but the most lovable co-host anyone could possibly have. DJ, how are you doing?
I am amazing, and we have a special episode today, but take it away, AC. Hope you're doing well.
Well, I am doing well, and today we have a guest, the third guest in the Metal
already
Podcast
forgot.
history. Yep, that's okay. That's okay. That's why I'm here to pick up the slack.
Yeah.
The legend, the outlaw, the maverick, the only man whose guitar squeals could match the pitch of the King Diamond himself. Ladies and gentlemen, Andy LaRocque. How are you doing today, sir?
Very good. Thank you. You guys, all good?
I'm good.
Oh, fantastic. Appreciate you hopping on with us and indulging us.
No problem. You know, it's going to be great.
Oh,
Andy,
yeah,
what have you been up to these days?
To make a long story short, the last tour we did was in the US, and we jumped off that tour in December 2019, and that was right before the pandemic broke out. So since then, we haven't been on the road. I mean, not a single show. We've been composing some songs, and I've been, trying to survive with bands in the studio, because that's what I do, when I'm not out with King Diamond touring and writing music for King Diamond. I'm a music producer, mostly metal, of course, as you can imagine. And but even then, back in like the 2021, that was really hard because the borders were closed for a long time, and bands wouldn't be able to fly into Sweden, as they used to do, but I survived and I'm here. And, last year and this year looks really good, when it comes to my producing and working with bands, so I just in the final mixing phase, I would say, with a Norwegian band called Cold. And it's going to be next week also, then we're done with that, and after that, I'm constantly working with things, I'm writing riffs for King Diamond all the time, and what does not fit, for a King Diamond song, it ends up like something else, in my library of songs, I believe, and in a couple of weeks, I'm going down to Switzerland to start, I would say, the starting phase of a band recording. They're going to come up to my studio later, but going to start like going through songs and arrangements and all that. It's a band called Dark Flow. It's going to be really interesting. So I'm going to go down to Switzerland in about 2 weeks, I believe, and start up everything with them, so they can continue. And after that, I'm going to mix a US band called Dialith. And, it goes on and goes on, until, things going to happen with King Diamond eventually. And you're probably going to ask me about this, but, we might be able to come out next year for something. I can't really tell you when or where, but we're checking the possibilities to really come out with something next year, definitely.
Wow. Now, do you mean a release or do you mean a tour?
Tour.
Oh.
Yeah,
DJ...
and we're with the songs, we're working on that, if you wanted to tell me a little about that, we have songs. I sent King a bunch of songs like a year and a half ago, and we started working on them, like arrangement wise and all that. And then Merciful Fate came in between, kind of, they did their summer tour in Europe and also a US tour. and then they're going to record like a single or two, I believe, and as soon as they're done with that, we're going to go back and pick up where we ended with King Diamond, all the King Diamond songs that we have, and then of course King's going to write his share of the songs too, and all the lyrics and stuff, so it's a long procedure, but we have started.
Yeah, DJ has unfortunately never seen King Diamond live.
I haven't, but I wear the shirt, so I'm one of those people. But that's one
Cool,
of my
man.
it's like one of my big, I don't know if I can call it a regret yet or something that I need to see. I need to see King
Bucket
Diamond.
list?
Yes, bucket list. I need to see King Diamond, and I'll even
You
throw.
need to,
What's that?
you got to check it out. Next time we come to the US, you got to let me know, and we'll work
Oh
something.
yeah, no
That's for
doubt.
sure.
Oh, that would be amazing. No,
Oh,
thank
yeah.
you. Holy
Yeah,
moly.
I actually I don't know what the tour was. I guess it was the Deadly Lullabies live tour. It was the one with Nile Behemoth and the Black Dahlia murder. I was there for
Yeah,
that.
that's
tour.
right.
It was the one that was
2005, I believe.
4 or 5, yeah. I think it was 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was where I remember I was going to go with this guy who was like, we have to see Nile. What's important is that we see Nile. And I was like, yeah, whatever. I don't care. Because I'd never heard of any of the opening bands. Because this was that era where they were mixing as many genres of metal as possible. So it's not like
Yeah.
you go see Cannibal Corpse and then Deicide opens. It's like, it wasn't something like that. It was like you go see Metallica and Godsmack opens. Like bands that really don't cross over, but they look like they're in the same section of Hot Topic together. So yeah, whatever. I can't read the
okay.
logo. Yeah, put them together. So that's how. So I didn't care. And then the first band that went on was Behemoth, and that was the first experience I had with an opening act that I actually enjoyed.
Cool.
So
yeah.
so that show really sticks out in my head, and I remember the whole set too. It closed with Evil. I remember that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Behemoth, great band, I mean, they were great back then, and they're even better now, and when it comes to us, the live performance, we always been focused on the live performances, but I would say the last 10 years we really got into it, and everything sounds so much better now live than it did back then, even though, we're proud of everything we did, of course, most of it at least, and but now everything is so together, I mean, we're a really good band, and yeah, everything just, we play very well together now, I would say,
Well, I have to ask you something, and this will tie into something I want to do at the very end. So this is something that I've kind of seen as kind of a newer trend. Like Danzig really does this, but as certain legacy acts, we'll call them, there's only a certain period in which you play songs from. Is there a specific reason why live you neglect a lot of the 90s stuff? Because there's still a lot of great songs, like From the Other Side, Loa House, The Pact, Trees Have Eyes.
Yeah, I agree. I guess there was just something very special, with those like first maybe 5 albums, that just still, in my opinion, are, amazing. I mean, we captured something really cool on those albums, and that feeling just, I guess, lives on, in a cool way, so I agree with you though, that we made a lot of, we wrote a lot of good songs, after that, of course, it's just that the feel we had back then, on those albums is just amazing, in my opinion.
Well, do you think that
it seems to be,
sorry.
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
It seems to be like that's the favorites from the audience too, they usually say, oh, play that and play that. And then of course, some songs pops up once in a while, from like, Spider's Lullaby or Voodoo or whatever, but just once in a while, so we play what we like, but of course we listen to the fans too, that's really important to do that, so we try to do a nice mix, of both, but obviously ends up, with the first songs from the first 5 albums.
So I want to Ed to expand on that. So I know a guy who's been you might even actually know him personally, but I won't say his name for the sake of this story. But he told me this, and you can debunk it right now if you know for a fact this is true. But he told me that after Megadeth released "The World Needs a Hero," or right before actually, Dave said that if the band wasn't, or if the album wasn't successful, he would disband Megadeth. And then the album was a critical and commercial failure. And then, I can't play guitar ever again because I slept on my hand wrong. But then metal made kind of a comeback in 2003, 2004. So, now he can play. So I wonder, are those first 5 albums, is it just because that was a better period for metal where that just feels like that? Because I feel like everything in the 90s, because it wasn't just, King Diamond had, a lesser critical reception in the 90s, but it was everyone. Like Dio was playing in like 900 person clubs. So like the 90s were just kind of a lull for metal. And we on this show, we do stand by that metal was actually artificially removed from the mainstream. It wasn't like it was a fad that was popular in the 80s and then now it's just no one's interested in it anymore. Because I refuse to believe that 10 years later people would rather hear Limp Bizkit than Iron Maiden. I refuse to believe that. So is it possible that that's just the era where it just felt more comfortable? Because I read that you said that The Spider's Lullaby was the most difficult record to record just because you had a whole new band, essentially.
That's correct. I mean, there was a whole new band coming into the studio, and that was a totally new environment. We entered a new studio, different producer. Everything was so different than what we were used to. So that also, affects how everything turned out on that album, I believe. But as you said, back in the 80s, metal was like bigger probably, but I wouldn't say that affects, what song we choose or anything like that. It's just, we pick out what we think is good. And as I said earlier, like a mix between what people want to hear and what we like to play, But still, I think we capture something really magic on those first albums that's hard to recreate. I mean, we try to do that, of course, I mean, with certain things, but sometimes it's just, the original kind of feel that we had for those albums I'm mentioning, it's just unique.
And I do appreciate that, especially as a fan, because I'm not going to sit here and say, well, you know what, you're wrong. The Graveyard is actually the best King Diamond record. That's not true. I would never say that ever. So I do like that you draw from the well that is what the people like. And I do think those are the premier albums. And it's funny because we talk about Megadeth a lot. This might as well be the Megadeth podcast.
Right.
and it's the opposite problem that Megadeth has, because we always say, why do they not play from the records that made them popular? And they really only play the singles from a few of them. And they completely ignore Killing Is My Business,
right,
except for sometimes the Mechanics. But what made King Diamond popular was those first 5 albums. So it's only natural that you would want to play from those, because it's not just, well, you're popular and we have to play these crappy songs. Well, those are actually good songs. And Abigail is probably my favorite produced record of all time. And I do say regularly that the Black Album is probably the best produced record of all time. And I also regularly say that I despise that record. I do not like any of the songs on it except for Unforgiven. But Abigail has this combination of like eerie sound but pristine at the same time.
Mhm.
It's like the perfect 80s metal record. Like when you think like what is metal, it is Abigail. And that's not my favorite King Diamond album. My favorite album is Conspiracy.
Oh, that's mine too.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Cool.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite
But then
record?
again, you know, when you talk to people, you know, they didn't. I mean, I meet a lot of people, you know, that they did not start listening to King Diamond, you know, and the first couple of albums, maybe they started like later with like as you mentioned, you know, Graveyard. That was the first album they started to listen to, or Spider's Lullaby, and that has become, you know, their favorite album, you know. So it's of course very different, you know, what people think, you know.
There's still a nostalgia
Um,
factor. Like I listened to this first, so it sticks with me. Like this is the thing that got me into
yeah,
the band. So there is still that. And I
yeah,
think that's why a lot of people really like their grip on the Black Album is like kung fu, because that was their gateway to the broader metal movement, because Metallica was still very
yeah,
accessible. And at that time, like you listen to the Black Album, like what else is there? Well, Rust in Peace is new. The Eye is new. Altars of Madness. There's still plenty of solid metal records at that time. I was one of those people. I didn't know about Merciful Fate. I came upon King Diamond. And then I later found out, oh, there's more King Diamond. Oh, is another band. And I do like Merciful Fate. And I am one. And it's not just because you're on the show. I do think King Diamond is the superior band. It's just, to me, it's like 80s Priest versus 70s Priest. Like 70s Priest is still very good. It's just 80s Priest is the more traditional heavy metal sound. It doesn't have that like that transition from like the stoner rock to the hard rock that even like the first Maiden record has. What is your favorite King Diamond record?
my favorite King Diamond record is probably Abigail. I mean, if you look at the whole picture, you know, I mean, we captured a unique atmosphere on that album. You know, we did a few tours together before we started recording that, you know, and we went into the studio recording Fatal Portrait, you know, like a year and a half earlier. So we got to play together, you know, for a couple of tours, got to know each other, and rehearsed a long time before we went into the studio. So I think, you know, we just captured something very unique, and that's that's my favorite album, definitely, Abigail.
Yeah, and it's kind of it's refreshing that because Abigail, it's not my favorite, but I would say every song on it is like a perfectly constructed song where it's the album that made King Diamond like established like yes, this is a band that is cemented in hard rock, but everyone kind of agrees that this is the album. And not very many bands I think have that. Like Metallica's go-to album is the Black Album. Do you like
Mhm.
Metallica?
Yeah, it's not listen to them every day, but of course, you know, I think they made some great songs, you know.
What is your favorite Metallica album? Is it the Black Album?
It's probably the Black Album. Yeah.
All right, and that's the show. Thanks everyone. But my
But then
point
again,
being was I think most people are kind of all over the place with like Ride the Lightning to the Black Album.
yeah,
Like the Black Album's the big one, but if you
yeah,
see someone in a Metallica shirt, it's either Master of Puppets or Ride the Lightning. But the
yeah,
best album from their early years is probably Injustice for All, except they turned the bass off, which
yeah,
makes it
exactly.
sound so bad. Have you
Yeah.
heard the mixes that like they're on YouTube where people have added the bass back in? Have you heard it?
Oh, really? No, no.
It sounds
Interesting.
so good because Jason Newsted is such an aggressive bass player. And I've said
Yeah,
this since high school. The bass players in Metallica have oddly always outshined every member of the band, which is weird for a band that's not like a funk band. And you can listen to like the bass on particularly one and Dyer's Eve. Like it's just so punchy and it sounds so good. It is like it's
yeah, I can imagine.
It's a 180. It changes the album completely. And it's one of those
Wow,
things
cool.
like, because DJ and I used to play music live, like for years, we just didn't have a bass player because it's something that's not as important live because everything is so loud, but having it in this, like in a studio recording, it's so important. And then they just turned it off.
Yeah. No, I think Justice, it's a great album, but I mean, if you look at the overall picture, the Black Album is just, it sounds good, great songs. I mean, the whole thing is just very good, I mean. And I would say Ride the Lightning too, of course, it's a great album. It's like this raw kind of, 80s kind of metal, which is good too,
Well,
but I mean,
and
yeah,
it's raw
the Black
without
Album is
sounding
just,
like crap
yeah.
too.
Yeah, exactly. I agree.
Like like Killing Is My Business is a really rough listen to, like the original recording of it. It's so it almost sounds like
the
a
production
demo.
value.
Yeah. Like that to Rest in Peace. It's just such a monumental change because you've been producing since the 80s, right?
No, I would say I started produce. I mean, I've been involved in the King Diamond process, of course, but when I started up my studio, that was back in '95. So that's when I really started to get into producing other bands and working with other bands.
Was that?
So it's soon 30 years.
Okay, so did that start? That was analog still, right? Or were you starting
yes,
digital?
Yes, it was.
That was what I was.
That was analog.
That's what I was going to get at. Is like how has the analog to digital process really and affected you as your producer brain?
I think it's just good going over to digital, because it's so much easier to do things. If you want to move around things, and I mean, the undo button. There wasn't an undo button on an analog tape machine. I mean, that's a really good thing nowadays. So I wouldn't go back to tape. Everyone says that tape sounds so good, but then again, there is a lot of maintenance on a tape machine and analog outboard gear, of course. And nowadays you can simulate or emulate, everything, so it sounds like a tape machine, whatever you want to do, it's getting really, really good with that. So I wouldn't, go back to a tape machine again, never, ever again,
Well, I recently released an album. I did all the parts on it. I produced, I mixed and mastered it. I'm sure someone like you might hear it and say, "Oh yeah, you definitely did it all by yourself." Hold your nose in the air. Well, I go with the cope like, oh, it sounds like, Eaten Back to Life or, Altars of Madness, which is my way of saying it. It sounds like it was recorded by a bunch of 16-year-olds over the holiday weekend that didn't know what they were doing.
Right. Send me links, man. Send me links.
Oh, sure. I love to. And I am very proud of the album itself. I do think it suffers in the production. But the point I was getting at is I had to use a drum machine because I'm here by myself, in a small little studio. And I haven't played drums in 15 years. But there is an actual filter on it that says it's like 1980s tape.
All right, cool.
Yeah, so like you can emulate every sound. Have you ever seen the movie Ghost World?
Nope.
Okay, well there's a scene in it. It's this is not like a recommendation, but there is a scene in it where someone is talking about vinyl versus CD. And then someone saying vinyl sounds better. And the counter argument is, well, it all comes down to your sound system. If you have a really good sound system, you won't be able to hear the difference. And I think today, with things sounding, with everything being digital, there is a problem in music where a lot of things are overproduced.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't have to make it sound so perfect. You can leave it a little more raw. And that's not me saying like I intentionally did that. I tried to make mine sound as good as possible, but that's first time doing it. But almost every artist that I hear now, check out this new band, everything sounds like all the dials are turned up to 10. Like There are no flaws in anything. You can make anything sound perfect now, and that's not a bad thing. Like, why do you want your record to sound bad? Like, do you like Boston?
Oh, I love Boston.
Like their first record, like that. Like, imagine if that sounded like. Do you know the band Absurd?
No, I probably heard the name, but no.
Yeah, it's
I'm
like
not
a
sure.
black metal band. I think they're pretty bad. I know a lot of people like them, but I don't know if this is true, but I think they recorded their first release in a van on an answering machine.
Down by the river?
I don't know if it was down by the river. It might have been. I think that's just where they were living. Yeah, I don't know if that's true or if that's what people said, but that's what the release sounds like. So you take that first Boston release and then you suck all the production out of it. It's not the same. What gives a lot of the releases of that era, like another good example is the Alan Parsons Project. Like they have these really nice sounds, and people undervalue good production because people don't even think about it. Because especially now, because everything is digital, and every artist. I'm sure you've heard the name Lil Jon, the rapper.
John?
Do you not know him? That's
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I was told that he charged $250,000 to produce a song, just one.
Wow.
Yeah. So you have all these releases from these major artists, and like everything sounds perfect. So people don't realize, because it's just everything sounds good. So people don't realize how important production is. And a lot of things that come out now, they're so synthesized and so sterile that there's no heart. You know? Where's the love?
No soul. Yeah, I agree. You know, I really agree.
No doubt.
And that's also something we talked about, you know, for the next King Diamond album, if I may, you know.
Please do.
No,
Talk
do
about
it.
that, you know.
Do it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
We don't want it to be like, you know, sterile, you know, and just like, you know, we want it to be humanized. We want it to be like organic, you know, the next album for sure, you know, and going back a little bit to not like totally 80s sound, you know, but a little step, you know, back to things, you know, from the past kind of, you know, when it comes to the production, like recording a lot of stuff, you know, with good microphones and good, you know, analog preamps and good analog outboard gear also makes that happening, you know, and it doesn't really have to be perfect everywhere. If there's something that's a little, you know, whatever, that sticks out a bit, that's cool, you know. I mean, if you listen to the old albums, you know, some crazy stuff going on in the background, you know, which is good, you know. So it doesn't really have to be computerized or sterile or, you know, like put you know, together in a perfect way, you know. I mean, the feeling is more important, I believe, you know, than anything else, you know.
Well, and that's why I love that I don't want to call it minimalist, but just records in the 80s. They just had this sound that I don't think has ever been really properly emulated. Do you like Creator?
Yeah, it's not, you know, again, something I listen to every day, but yeah, cool stuff. Definitely.
Well, they had an album. I want to say it was 2008 or 9. I can't remember. It was the one after Enemy of God, and they decided like we want to do this how we did it in the 80s. And I'm not saying you should do this. I mean, this is just kind of like extreme measures. They recorded the whole thing on an 8-track.
Wow.
And it doesn't sound bad. It sounds good. It sounds 80s, but it doesn't sound like their first 2 releases, which are extremely underproduced. But it has a raw sound without sounding like crackly and hollow, like they recorded it in a hangar. It sounds good. And there's something to records being, I don't want to say not so overproduced because that sounds stupid, but not so pristine, not so digital, not so perfect. Like, give me a little reverb. Give me a little more, especially with King Diamond. King Diamond is like the quintessential spooky band. Like, give me that sense, like I'm listening to it and like wind is blowing and I hear the leaves flow, like rustling everywhere, and I feel a chill down my spine, and I didn't get that with Abigail 2 and The Puppet Master and Give Me Your Soul. Like those albums sound, they don't have that 80s production.
Mm-hmm.
Not that those albums are bad, and the album, all the songs are good. They're the best records since the 80s. Well, I think Abigail 2 is better than The Eye, I think. The Eye, I feel bad because I've listened to it multiple times and I only know 2 songs from it. It comes up on my iPod. I'm like, what song is this? Like, Father Pickard. Like, oh yeah, this song. Feel bad because I just always hear it. It's just so unforgettable. And it's not that it's not bad. It's just, I think that was the transition from that 80s production into the 90s production, which Spiders and Lullaby, I think, does have that 80s production. And it's
interesting.
Just,
okay.
I think that album is underrated. And I think it's just the era which it came out. Like Testament, 2 of my favorite records are Low and Demonic. And I think it was just around that time. I think metal kind of went into remission because like bands like System of a Down, Rage Against the Machine, Korn,
the new metal,
new metal got pushed, and that stuff had no staying power. Like you can go to see like a local metal night or whatever, any bar that's playing like upcoming metal bands, or not even upcoming, just local ones, and you're gonna still see people making thrash metal bands, people still doing black metal, death metal. People still doing like traditional heavy metal. No one is doing new metal anymore. Like for the same reason, no one's doing grunge anymore. And I do, for the most part, I like a lot of the grunge bands, not all of them, but for how big it was, it didn't have any staying power. Like sure, Pearl Jam is still big. Alice in Chains, despite the unfortunate death of Lane Staley, like they're still touring and like they're still doing big festivals, but where are your other grunge bands? And they're not around, but they're still metal. That being said, Andy, what is your favorite record by ABBA?
By ABBA? Wow.
National
it's probably
treasure.
Arrival.
Okay, good. I knew you liked ABBA.
Yeah, great songs. I mean, in general, great songs. I didn't really, well, when I was like 11, 12 years, 13 years old, I thought, great melodies and all that stuff, but it wasn't cool,
No.
to be an ABBA fan, and just, a little bit later, I got into more, glam rock and metal, so then ABBA is like, oh, that's for girls, But I mean, when you listen to it now, it's like amazing things, It's wow, great songs, definitely.
Well, there's almost a human need to rebel. And ABBA is so popular. If they're popular, they must not be cool. Like my dad likes ABBA. There's no way ABBA is cool, because if my dad likes it, it can't be cool. And this is something that I was 100% like this in high school. Like I secretly loved Journey, but I was the guy, like I had hair down to my butt and I wore boots up to my knees, leather jacket. Like I was the metal guy, but no one could know that I liked Journey. And on my iPod, I renamed Journey, so if anyone was looking through it, they wouldn't see.
Oh, really?
The secret comes out.
And there was a bunch of acts that I like, and again, it's not just. I mean, I'm bringing it up because you're here, but I really like Ace of Base.
Oh, really? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All
And,
right.
and these are all things. It's just like when you're wearing like Morbid Angel or whatever, pick your metal band
Mhm.
shirts, like the really dark and scary ones. Like, you got like a Slayer Live Undead shirt on. You can't let anyone know that you like this cheesy pop. Was D Light from Sweden?
Who?
D Light. It's like DEEE dash LIT. They do that song. Groove is in
Not that I
hot. It's
No,
they
I'm
were
not
some
familiar with that.
because there was a brief stint in the 90s where there was these Euro techno dance acts,
Hmm.
and they were all of them were
Okay.
just from various parts of Europe, like Rednecks, uh the Real
Yeah, they were
McCoy,
Swedish. Yeah.
yeah, obviously Ace of Base, D Light.
Yeah.
It was just like a flash in the pan. They were all really Alice DJ. They were all popular for a very brief window. And I
Mhm.
love that stuff. Like, I don't like modern dance music or whatever pop is. I hate it. I hate it. That being
Okay.
said, Andy, is there anything like if it comes on the radio or like whatever you're at the mall or I pick a place where music that you don't have control over plays that like you really do not like? Is there anything that you just this I hate it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead and tell us. The
No, that's
world
fine.
is the
I
world
totally
is
agree with that.
dying to know.
No, I'm in the same way, kind of, and I'm working with heavy metal like at least 5 days a week. I mean, at least 5 days a week. I'm working with different bands and doing a lot of music, myself and whatever, different bands, artists, whatever. And when you go home, the last thing you want to hear, what is that? Metal.
Rap. Oh,
Seriously, because you get so full of metal.
Well, it's
yeah.
work
So it's like
too,
when
it
you get
seems like.
home, yeah. I mean, when you get home, you want to have quiet. That's that's a recharge. I mean that's necessary for me just to recharge. From no metal at all. Something completely different, something in the background. If there has to be any music at all. That's how I work. But then again, I mean, can you imagine working with metal, which I really enjoy and love? 5, 6 days a week. That's great. But I mean, then go home and listening to whatever
ABBA.
metal. Yeah, but that's all right to do that. But I mean, it's going to be it's tough to go home and then continuing listen to metal for another 6 hours. That's not happening.
And you really do have to do that because that's what happened to me, and you need that to keep going because I was at that point where because we played a lot of metal, we were going to a lot of shows, we weren't just like going to shows like, hey, it's our friend's band, or like, hey, it's Megadeth, and then tomorrow it's Slayer or something like that. Like we were just going to local shows all the time. And then eventually I did get burned out and I just like cut it off completely, like 180. And I'm like, all right, 80s pop, let's do it. Cause it was the furthest thing from metal. And through that, I developed a love for, and then, this came out years later because that wasn't a thing at the time. But synthwave. Do you like synthwave?
What is that?
So
Sorry.
synthwave, it's
A synthwave.
Yeah,
Synthwave. Okay.
yeah.
Are we talking about old like
No, it's modern.
British?
No.
Oh, really? Synthwave. Okay. No, I'm not familiar with that. Sorry.
Yeah, what it is, it's kind of a new thing. Like I don't know when it because it pretty much got popular from the movie Drive, but that movie's from 2011. So it is like the last 15 years, but it's music that's supposed to sound like 80s soundtracks. Like not necessarily like bands like Depeche Mode or The Cars or Erasure or stuff like that or Camouflage, but it's supposed to sound like essentially John Carpenter movies.
Mhm.
And it's all contemporary artists. Like you can just go on YouTube and there'll be multiple channels like 24/7 synthwave, and then they'll have ones that sound like horror movies, and it'll be called dark wave. And it's really really good, and it's what I like to put on because a lot of it is instrumental. Like some of them they do have vocals, and those really sound like 80s pop. Like it sounds like Kylie Minogue or like Madonna or the Go-Go's. Like it really sounds like it. You'd have no idea that it was contemporary. But I put that on when I'm like reading, but then I'll go like, I'm all right, I'm exercising. All right, I need a little aggression. I can't have like, you know, that electronic snare and some keyboards like to get to the next rep. So then the metal comes back on. Like you can't just immerse yourself in one thing. You no matter
I totally agree.
Pick a thing. Metal music, surf and turf, screwball comedies, weightlifting. Like you will get burned out no matter what it is. Like you need a break. So you're doing metal 5 days a week, and it's probably 8 to 12 hours. I don't know. I know those sessions can run long. Maybe some days they're shorter.
Exactly.
Maybe some days they're longer. You come home to metal, and then eventually you're just going to say, I'm done. And that's not just listening to the music. It's probably producing it because your brain can't handle that much. You need to recharge. You need to give your brain a break.
Exactly. That's what it's all about, you know, and to get inspired to write your own music too, you really need that break in between sessions in the studio. And, you know, I mean, you can only take it in for so long, you know, and then you have to have that break. That's for sure, you know. That's why I don't really, you know, I live about an hour south of Gothenburg, which is a really good, you know, town for metal, you know. I mean, there's a lot of bands that comes from Gothenburg, like
isn't that where Batman comes from?
Batman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Swedish Batman comes from Gothenburg.
Yeah, the Swedish Batman.
Okay.
Yeah, of course, you know.
Oh, that's
but
funny.
you know, there are actually a lot of concerts going on there, you know. But you know, it's just if there's something really, really interesting, you know, I go there, or friends of mine play, you know. But if it's not, you know, it's not that I'm going to an average metal show, you know, and just hang out, you know, because I've probably been working for like 5 or 6 days that week, you know, and then going to a metal concert is like, whoa, no, I don't think so. No.
Well, when I was in high school, like there was a point where I was going to a show every night, and I meet people around me that just, oh, you want to go to a show? And I'm just like, nah, I'm good. And it's because I've done enough. So like the experience, it's not as fresh as it was when I was a kid. We're like, oh my gosh, can you believe this? The high it's not there. You know, I've built up that tolerance. And so let's say we'll ignore anything before this, but you have been with King Diamond since Fatal Portrait. So that's 38 years, or 37. That was 86, right?
85, 38 years.
Okay,
yes.
38 years. Wow. So for 38 years, we're just pretending you did nothing before then. You have been around either studio or live music. Nothing is new for you under the sun. It's not like, you know, you're not 16 and then this is the first time you've like, do you want to see this metal band? And what would it take to see something new at this point in your career that's basically been 40 years?
You know, as I said earlier, you know, I mean, if there's something really interesting, which, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't even
really fathom it. Yeah. You can't even fathom
exactly.
it.
Well, I have a question too, because I want to ask. What's
please go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, like, at your level, can you even learn anything else on the guitar? Because I see that you're on Individual Thought Patterns. So you have cross paths with Chuck Schuldiner. So
DJ's favorite.
That is one of my favorites. I'll be honest. Like, what did you either learn from him or like
teach him?
I'm trying to, yeah. Yeah, what did you teach him too? Because I saw that you kind of were like a hired gun, where it kind of said that you would just come in without really preparing, not really on your part, but Chuck just wanted you to come in and solo and do your thing. And I think you're a humble guy saying, "Oh no, I prepared a little bit or whatever." But kind of curious on that because that's Death is a little different than King Diamond, but I mean you're around one of the greatest to ever pick legends. Up the another legend.
Yeah. No, I mean I got the question from the record company at that time, which was Road Racer Records in New York, and they knew Chuck, and Chuck's been a fan of King Diamond, and he actually went down to a few shows too when we played in Florida, back in the days. And I met him, like briefly, but that's about it. And then I got this question from the record label, they asked me if I wanted to go to Florida and record some stuff with the Death. And we didn't really do anything with King Diamond at that time.
Yeah, that was when Merciful Fate got back together.
Okay. Exactly. That was during that time, like back in early 1990.
Piece of Time, right? Or was it just called Time?
Time. Yeah, I can't really recall, but this was like late in 92 that I got that request.
Okay.
And I flew over in, I guess, February or March, maybe in 1993. And Chuck sent me a cassette tape with like parts, from the songs and stuff, like a demo. So I was prepared just a little bit, on the parts and memorized it, and played along with some stuff, And then when we got over to the studio, I really sat there in the hotel room and worked pieces out, and worked the parts out, and then into the studio and recording it, So I wasn't, of course, super prepared for it. It's just like take it as it comes and do your best and improvise and compose the solos at night in the hotel room. Go into the studio in the morning and record it. That's what I did. And that's then amazing. Later, Chuck asked me if I wanted to join the band, but I was really busy with everything at that time. My second kid was on his way, and I was just tired of touring because we toured really intensely with King Diamond the years before that. So that was another good break, kind of. That was just good for me to have a little break from everything. But going over to Florida and recording with Death and Chuck and everyone was a really cool and different thing. We got along very well, and everyone took care of me when I came to the studio. Scott Burns was the producer at that time. Great guy,
Produced every Florida death metal record.
Yeah, great guy, man. And I just had a good time there. I was there for about 10 days, to record my stuff.
Wow. That's it? Yeah. That's crazy to me.
Well, when you think about it, the first Possessed record, I think they recorded it over spring break when they were in high school, that whole record. So,
wow.
Yeah. I think that was in the studio for about maybe 4 or 5 weeks, something like that, Totally, but I was there for about 10 days, and record a little bit, every day,
Right, yeah.
And then, oh yeah, go ahead, AC.
I was gonna say, yeah, you weren't there like when they were recording drums and bass and the vocals. You were just there to do your part, yeah.
No, and the thing is, this is pretty funny though, because Gene Hoglan, he left
the Atomic
the
Clock
day before or the same day I arrived to Florida. He left, so I never had the chance to meet him. Steve was there, Giorgio. Mm-hmm. He was in the studio for a couple of days, then he had to go. But it took me actually more than 20 years until I met Gene. And then I met him at the festival in Belgium.
And you guys were on an album together?
That was crazy. 20 years, like never met, and then, crazy.
That was
cool. And then after that, I met him a couple of times actually, and that was cool.
That reminds me of a story that Ryan said. Ryan was the guitar player in a band DJ and I were in, and I was not the singer. I was the third singer, and at the time was our second singer. And Ryan said, "It's funny, I was in the band with this guy for months and I never met him because by the time like we were going to do a show with this new guitar player. Our singer, he left. So this guy was just in a band. They just never met. But now I'm sure you cross paths with everybody. It's a different world. It's kind of like I don't want to say it's like retirement, but it's just like everybody like knows everyone in the metal world now. There's no real like competition. Like even like okay, Megadeth and Metallica played multiple like tours together at this point. So it's like the hatchets have been buried.
Yeah, no bad blood.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's people that don't like people, but that's an individual thing, as opposed to maybe back in the past when you're younger, you're in your 20s, your blood is a little hotter, so it's easier to rub someone the wrong way. But you get older and you just I don't have the energy to fight anyone anymore.
Yeah. I mean, enjoy life and have a good time. I mean, what's wrong with that?
Nothing.
Exactly.
Right.
I mean, but I remember when I was like around maybe 25, I had, I felt that I had, when you're younger, it's like, wow, all the guitar heroes around, like, whatever, Paul Gilbert, Yngwie Malmsteen, you name it, and the pressure was really hard to do, really cool, fast stuff, and walking out on stage, and having that pressure, that was like different back then when you were younger than it is now. I mean, when I walk out on stage now, I just do my thing. And, if a string breaks or whatever, the guitar breaks down, whatever, I don't give a shit. Shit happens. And I'm just so much more relaxed with the whole music business and the competition and everything nowadays than I was when I was like 22 years old or 25 years old, So, and of course it has changed in my opinion too. The whole, thing with it, has changed, to the better, in that sense,
Well, yeah, in some areas, yes. Is Mike still
some areas? Yeah, exactly. I would say some areas. Yeah.
Is Mike Weed still on the upcoming album?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's in the band.
Okay,
it's gonna be Matt Thompson, Mike Weed, Pontus Egberg on the bass, and of course King, vocals.
Haven't replaced him yet. Oh well.
It's kind of hard to do that. And again, I want to say something else. I talked about earlier. It's not that I don't go to metal concerts, because I do.
Yeah.
But I don't go to metal concerts every day that you guys used to do back in the days.
Right.
But it's got to be something special. Like the band I really want to see coming to the city, or something different. Or friends of mine playing somewhere. That's really cool to hang out with friends. That's cool, man. That's good.
Yeah. Well, how many bands have you toured with? That's the thing. Is like you've probably seen you've probably like on a regular basis seen bands that you would want to see live just like for like a whole year. So it's not as simple as just like, well, hey, this band's coming to town. It's like, I toured with them. Like, I don't need to see them again. Like, I got stuff to do. I gotta watch
their albums.
I gotta watch The Simpsons tonight, or the Swedish equivalent.
I think the cool thing, when you tour with a lot of bands, is that you become friends, with everyone, which is great, And if they're playing around and I have a chance to go there, I would definitely do that. That's of course, I'll do that. But it's not actively, searching, for okay, who's playing this weekend, and stuff. I don't do that. It's like usually people tell me, hey, do you know that this band is playing in Gothenburg like next week or whatever? You want to come? Sure, cool, man.
Yeah, because it's not the event that it used to be, but like, hey, could be a fun thing to get together with nice people and listen to music. Like,
exactly.
It's that at this point. Yeah, like people say, do you want to go see this band? Like, no, I don't. But it's like, do you want to go see this band with me and my friends? Yes, that sounds fun. I'm at that point where like I've seen almost all of my favorite bands. Like I have seen Venom, I've seen Celtic Frost. Now, I haven't seen Merciful Fate, but I've seen King Diamond play Merciful Fate songs. So, like, I've seen the bands that matter. I've seen Motorhead. I've seen Megadeth. Exodus, Testament. I've seen Exodus 7 times. I saw Behemoth like 7 times in 2 years. Like, I've seen enough. Yeah, that was the weirdest thing, because I never heard of this band. And then just every time I went to a concert that year, just Behemoth was the opening act. Like, they opened for Morbid Angel, they opened for Danzig, they opened for Gwar. It was the weirdest thing, just never seeing this band, and then now only seeing this band. And I got to the point where someone's like, hey man, Behemoth's playing here, do you want to go? Like, no, I've seen them enough. I've seen them more than most bands. Yeah. So I am at that point where it's not about seeing live bands. It's about wanting to be in that environment at that time. But when we're talking about certain things, like how things have changed, I want to read some lyrics to you. I want to get your opinion on this. This is a new phenomenon. It's called drill rap. Have you heard of this?
No. What band?
No, it's not a band. It's a genre called drill rap.
Oh, genre. Okay. I thought the lyrics was from. Okay.
No. So, because you were talking about, like, when you're in your 20s, you feel a little more, you got the fire pumping.
Yes.
So this is a whole genre of people who will say got the fire pumping, and then this is a big thing. It's not like, you go on YouTube and there's 17 views. Like, we got like 10, 20, 30, 40 million views on these acts.
70 million on some.
Yeah. So this is a song called Viral by Wappa Wit the Choppa. So here's the lyrics. Blayat, A big wop in this bitch, A gang A, my Glock in my pants, make an N go viral, TikTok, but he dead. Get stepped on like a toe in this bitch. Smoke an N like a port in this bitch. And I'm cutthroat, throwing 4s in this bitch. Disrespectful N, called your girl a hoe and a bitch. 187 was the youngest N with them double clips. No bap, really shot an N with my brother, shit. We'll make an N famous, put him on the news quick. That boy on the TV gang, news for Jax that N, never worked for the government, but we tax that N. What class is when he graduating? Damn, they clapped that N. Rolling up a whole 3-5, but this fat little N laced up my black forces. Finna slide on your street. I've been watching your house all night like that bitch TV. And no, we spin this bitch again like a DVD. Now, in the 80s, that would be like a record, because you don't really spin DVDs, but they do spin. Big Gun knocked him out of space. Call that boy E.T. They like, WAP is you blood. Why you always throwing bees? They say, WAP is you cuz. All these blues on me. Stop asking all them questions, for I put your ass on a T. I don't know what that means. Got a chopper from the Swiss Army knife, and that bitch makes beats. A. And, I'm not going to read the whole song because it just, it's more.
Wow. doesn't sound like a metal song from the 80s. That's for sure.
No, it doesn't.
I literally got nothing from that.
Wow. That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
So you understand, I mean, half of the sentences, it's like,
no.
It's like,
it's not English.
No, well, and so there to add a little context to this, because this is something DJ and I have talked about a few times. So this is a genre. It's not like these people aren't just like rapping about violent things. They genuinely are criminals that kill other people. Like, these are straight up violent murderers.
Yeah, we have seen that in Sweden quite. There's been a lot of stuff like that going on here.
Well, and I was going to comment that in England, one of these groups, they got their lyrics banned because they were actually a violent gang. And because this is what they do, they rap about the actual crimes they have committed. Like, they'll be like, and then I shot him in the chest, and I dropped the gun for meters from the dumpster, and then I got in the red sedan, and then I drove down 5th Street. And it's like, well, the crime report says that a guy was shot in the chest. The gun was 4 meters from the dumpster, and then witness saw someone get into a red sedan and head down 4th Street. Like that's just what they do. And with metal, I feel a little bit more like it touches my soul. Like it like the music hits me in a certain way, but the lyrics also tell some sort of, well, King Diamond specifically tells the story, but like I feel like they're like I don't want to sound like a pretentious teenage girl, but like if my soul could write lyrics, it would be metal. Like it's kind of like that. Like the words appeal to me, and they say something, and it hits you in a different way. Like my favorite Megadeth song is "My Last Words." Like just the line, fill the terror chamber. Your mind begins to squeeze, or your mind begins to scream. Your life is like a trigger, never troubled till you squeeze. Now you crack a smile to give the gun a tease. Like it's the lyrics say something. Now what I just read, it was like the equivalent of sucker punching an old person, just put into lyric form. Like it was just like violent and senseless. I have no idea what
and uneducated.
Yeah, and that's what's being pushed on young kids, and and that's all okay. Like this, and it's just senseless violence, and it's an attack on language. Like I have no idea what that like. I mean that if someone told you that's like, have you seen a Clockwork Orange?
Yeah.
Like
long time ago, yes.
Yeah, but like like the dialect that they use in that, like they use it's kind of Russian. I can't remember what language it is, but they took pieces from another language, like when they use words like devotchka and doobie doob, like they say like very strange, poogly, like weird things, but they took it from another language, but there it's done artistically. Where here, like it's just made up noises. I don't even know how to.
I see. Yeah,
it's not art.
No, that's the main thing.
And it doesn't make you want to pick up an instrument. Like you listen to King Diamond, hey, I'm gonna pick up a guitar or try to.
Yeah. No, that actually happened to me. Like hearing Megadeth and Iron Maiden and King Diamond, it made me want to pick up the guitar. Like I just said, I have to do
exactly.
This.
Mm-hmm.
That's in my opinion what music should do, make you inspired.
Yes,
and that's why I believe rap is at the forefront, because if it's like a rock and roll, you pick up an instrument and then you start creating, because it makes you feel creative, and when you're creating, you're productive, and when you're productive, you're happy. This doesn't make you productive. Like this is like in the 90s when they used to just give little boys Ritalin so they'd be less productive and easier to manage. It's just like on a global scale, people are no longer inspired to pick up and create because the creative aspects have been removed. Andy, it has been a blast. I could keep going for another 5 hours. I know you're pressed for time, but this has been a blast, and anytime you ever want to come back, you are always welcome. But if anything,
I was just going to say.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, let's do it. Another hour at some time in the future. That would be great. To do that. We can talk about completely different things too. That's absolutely
that'd be amazing.
Cool.
Well, yeah, we'll do what we normally do. We'll send you our show prep, and then you can give your input on that. But anything that you would like to plug.
Sure. I really hope that we're going to have some activity with King Diamond, next year, or starting now, I believe, with like going back to arranging the songs that we have started with. I really hope we do that very soon. And then, I just hope that we'll see you out on the road, soon. That's all I can say. That's what I hope for.
Same here.
All right, Andy, it has been a dream.
Yes.
So thank you so much. And we hope to see you again in the not too distant future.